today going to be breaking down for you what the Chevrolet Onix LTZ 1.4 liter engine is all about. I'm going to make this video as brief as possible. That is to say that I need to get over to the beach, which is in the background there, so I'm looking for parking. Anyway, the Chevrolet, what I'm driving right now is a 2016 Chevrolet Onix LTZ, which is the top model of the Chevrolet Onix, and it's gray with a black interior, and I think it's only really available for the Brazilian market. I could be wrong about that. It might be found in some countries in Europe, but it certainly is available here in South America. It is a subcompact, I would say a subcompact hatchback. You can also get a sedan version called the Prism, which I think is actually, from my appeal, a nicer looking car with the sedan profile. I'm not really a big fan of hatchbacks myself, but here we are. This is my personal city car. So essentially this is the car that I use to drive around the city of Rio de Janeiro because of its small roads, tight parking, and really crowded traffic. I can zip in and out. It has enough power to serve me fine. So let's break it down. Chevrolet Onix LTZ. It's got a 1.4 liter engine, good for 101 horsepower. You heard it, folks, 101 horsepower. This is a huge departure from the cars that I usually drive, and those will be covered in the other videos very shortly. What can I say about this car? I've got the 5-speed manual transmission. I am a big manual transmission kind of guy. I've driven all the DCTs, Tiptronics, SMGs from BMW's M's and so on and so forth. And although they can be very engaging, and they are quicker transmissions, certainly from a performance point of view, but I really like having a stick shift, having that left foot on the clutch, and rolling through the gears. For me, it's just more engagement in the car, and I think it really makes you a better driver overall. Okay, back to the car. So this car is a 4-seater. It's actually technically a 5-seater, and it really is built for economy. And but that's not to say that it doesn't have a handful of really cool features. I'll start with the good. I'll kind of bullet point those out for you, and then I'll go for the bad. The good, it's got 15-inch wheels. It looks pretty sharp from the front end of the car. The only modifications I've done to the car is I've put LED lights in the fog lamps and the running gear lights. I've also blacked out the windows. Here in Rio de Janeiro, you can never be too careful. Prying eyes, if you know what I mean. So all the windows are tinted really dark, and even the front windshield is tinted. So I'm not sure if that's legal, but a lot of people do it, and I've never had a problem with the cops yet. Anyway, that's the only two modifications I've done to the car: the black tinted windows and LED lights all the way around, including the license plate lights as well. So it looks pretty decent. The front end of the car looks good. I will say that for it. It really has that modern Chevrolet look to it, sort of that corporate grille and the roundness about it, kind of a swoopy front end. It looks pretty good driving towards you. Some of the other features, I mean, this is an entry-level car for sure. It's the highest model, mind you, of an entry-level car, but it has MyLink. It has various ways that I can play stereo music. It's got a decent sound system for the car. I have Bluetooth music directly from my cell phone, which I actually stream from Amazon Prime Music, and sometimes I'll just download a bunch of music to my USB, which can plug into the system as well. So there's various amounts of ways that you can use this MyLink system. I think it's pretty common throughout the Chevrolet family. However, there are two other models of the Chevrolet Onix that don't have it as an included feature, and that is the Joy, which has a 1.0 liter engine, which is only good for about, I don't know, 70 horsepower or something like that. And then you have the LT version, which it is an option on, but same with the 1.4 liter engine is an option on the LT as well. Some more of the good. Actually, for a small car, sort of that econobox type, category, it's not a bad car to drive. Actually, the steering feels pretty good. It's power assisted, but not too much. It's not really boosted a whole lot, so you can really feel what you're driving on. Pretty decent feedback through the whole steering box and steering feel, so I'll give that a thumbs up. It's pretty peppy for a 100 horsepower car. It's probably weighs about 2,000 pounds, so I guess the weight to power ratio is pretty decent for this car. It's really roomy. That's another advantage of this car. I can put 4 or 5 people in here. 4 definitely very comfortably. In fact, I went on a long road trip yesterday to a city called Juiz de Fora. I went there and back. That's in a different state in Brazil. And I was a little bit tired after the drive, but not too bad. So definitely they've used the inside space really well. They've laid it out pretty good. The seats are relatively comfortable, and so there you go. Some of the other pluses I would say is that the hatchback storage area is actually pretty good. I don't know exactly what the cubic feet is, but I can fit all my inline skating gear. I can put a wakeboard in there, and I can actually put a surfboard in here as well. And so I don't know, it seems to be able to lug around a lot of stuff. Other goods, it's got pretty decent storage. I'll flick some pictures up here in just a moment, but there's 3 cup holders, pretty decent sized glove box, and lots of little nooks and crannies where you can put drinks and cell phones and spare keys and all that kind of stuff. I've got my sunscreen here in one of the little cubbies. I don't leave home without it. And I have my drink here, and it's all pretty easy to access. It's behind the shift mechanism, but far enough so you're not hitting the shift mechanism when you get it. Okay, let's get to the downside of the car. Lack of power. I'm a bit of a gearhead. I've been driving very powerful cars most of my adult life, being a real car enthusiast. That's everywhere from M5s to AMG Mercedes convertibles. I've had a couple of V12s in my family at one point and another. I've owned several small cars that had a lot of power as well. I'd say probably the most economical, decent car that I've had in Canada, while living in Canada, was an Audi A3 with the 2.0T. That was good for 200 horsepower, and it's sort of just a nicer version of this car. It's a better hatchback, if you will. So definitely lacking power, even though I said it's a high point, the power, because the fact of the matter is, here in Brazil, you're going to get a lot of cars that are only about 60, 70, 80, 90 horsepower, and so 100 horsepower is not bad. Okay, what's one of the other advantages? Oh, I forgot a disadvantage, another thumbs down. Actually, I'm on the thumbs down part. The air conditioning in this car, the way it's set up, the vents, the controls and whatnot, they're functional, they're easy to get to, and it blows very cold air. Like right now it's 34 degrees out, that's Celsius, that's at least 95 Fahrenheit. And I've got it on the lowest setting, and I'm nice and cool. But the problem is that you cannot use the vents in a way that it's not blowing directly into your face. And there's only 4 settings. The first setting, I think, is too powerful. It's got too much air pushing out at you on the very first setting. So I find myself always fiddling around with the temperature control, the speed of which the fan control, and so on and so forth. I seem to endlessly be arguing with the system because it's blowing cold air in my face, or it's just blowing too much air in my face, period. And the bottom line is that it dries out your eyes, it just makes you feel crappy, and I think it's actually could be tiring, quite frankly. Another thumbs down about this car is the rear end look. Looking at this car from the back, I don't know who designed the back. It's very simplistic and so on and so forth, but it's not really inspiring. Like when you walk up to this car in the parking spot after you've done some grocery shopping, you're kind of like, oh, I'm driving that, like maybe I should have got the sedan version, got some wheel spacers. It would have had a much nicer stance. Again, not being a fan of hatchbacks. I probably don't like too many hatchbacks anyway, so maybe I'm biased in that regard. It could be. Another thumbs down on this car is that the front wheel drive, when you're really on the twisties in this car, I mean, it handles decently. It's pretty, you can fling it around pretty decently, but when there's a couple drops of water or something like that, you're gonna plow through corners. It's actually, you know, I'm living in a tropical rainforest here. You wouldn't see that by today's weather, but you know, it gets a little bit sketchy. It starts plowing through corners, and you know, it's just not, it doesn't really inspire a whole lot of confidence from a driver's point of view. So in the wet, the traction is not good, and the whole feel of the front end when you're taking tight corners and whatnot, I lose confidence pretty quick in this car, and I slow down a whole lot because I think I could be in danger of going off the road. And you know, maybe I'm exaggerating. I haven't tested that theory. I haven't really, I just can feel the car getting away from me, and I correct, and then I slow down. So I don't know what it would take to go off the road, but I'm not going to test that limit. The other things that I think are a little bit of a shortcoming here, definitely where the USB and the cigarette lighter adapter are placed. They're sort of in this dark cavern underneath the temperature controls, and you'll see a picture of that in just a second. Really hard to fumble with that. I really have to take my concentration down to that area, and I can't see. It's very, very dark. It's not backlit or anything like that. It's just very poor engineering from my point of view. If you're wanting to change from a USB to a plug in your cell phone or charge something, you're gonna have to pull off on the side of the road and really make those adjustments. Definitely one of the downsides. And finally, you know, I'm just gonna get to Chevrolet quality in general. I'm sure this car is built here in Brazil, manufactured here, but there are some niggling little problems that are coming up with this car. I've had to do a few things. I've had to change a corroded spark plug wire. This car is parked inside, by the way, so you can't really blame it on being parked out in the rainforest. I thought that was pretty early. This car only has about 30,000 kilometers on it. A couple of other problems is that the alignment centers have a real difficult time aligning this car. There seems to be something about the way the suspension is set up that the alignment is really difficult. So I've noticed that the inside of my tires of the front tires at least, wear out really quickly, and that can pose a danger because you're not really looking at the inside of your tires very often when you walk towards your car. Another downside, I think the road noise gets a little bit drony if you're on a good smooth surface. I can tell you, the car actually drives really nice. There's not a whole lot of air sound, but there's a lot of road noise. So if you're on a smooth surface, you're gonna have a pretty peaceful drive, but once you start hitting those undulations and bumpy roads, and this one's not so bad, I'm on a really nice road here, you're gonna start, all that road sound is gonna be transmitted to you up through the floor of the cabin, and it can be a little bit drony at times. Thank God for the sound system. You can crank the tunes up and get rid of that. Or like me, I have earplugs in here, so if I'm gonna go on a 4-hour drive, 5-hour drive down to the city of Sao Paulo, for example, I'm gonna wear earplugs probably half the way. Once I get tired of the music, you know, I'll stick some earplugs in, because that droning sound is, I think, pretty unacceptable, even for a car at this level. It is the top model of this car, so I think a little bit of extra sound deadening material would have been appropriate for the engineers of this car. What else can I say about it? Yeah, I mean, the door hinge, you know, another niggling little issue that's crept up. It's kind of sticking. I've oiled it and so on and so forth, but it doesn't seem to be opening and closing very smoothly. So that's going to need a little bit of work. There's a couple of other items that have come up with this car unexpectedly. So they're not big, expensive fixes by any stretch of the imagination. If you are a Mercedes, BMW, Porsche, Audi aficionado, you're going to find that the cost of maintaining this car is little to nothing, but it takes time, and time you know, I value my time. So I don't like these things coming up because I got to go find a mechanic that I can trust here in Rio de Janeiro. You know, I don't speak the language well enough to argue with these guys, but anyway, so these problems are, to me, are a little bit of a disappointment. So, I mean, all in all, for what it is, and by the way, the cost of this car, 59,000 Brazilian reais. So, you know, if you're buying it US dollars, you're talking about $15,000, which probably lines up with the Nissan Micra, or maybe the Hyundai Accent or something like that in the American market. I think it's a value-wise, again, you know, cars are exceptionally expensive in this market. So, I don't know, 60,000 bucks for this car. Maybe it's a decent price for the Brazilian market. Value from a Canadian perspective, no, not at all. I mean, this is, let's see, 21,000 Canadian dollars. Imagine what you can buy in Canada for $21,000. I mean, you get a host of much better cars that you could go to, even used. I mean, you could buy one of my cars that I have in Canada, a BMW 650i convertible, for about $21,000. So, you know, it's just the way it is. I mean, you don't expect all countries to be the same. Taxes are a big deal here, and that's the reason why cars are very expensive here. Chevrolet would be considered an import, even though I'm sure 99% of it's manufactured here and sourced here. But hey, what can I say? That's a whole different video for a different time. So that's it. I'll conclude that for now. If you have any questions and thoughts, I'm sure I forgot a lot of stuff. So, you know, just answer them down below. Subscribe to my channel too. I'm going to do a bunch of Brazil videos, and I do a lot of sport videos as well. So if you're interested in cars and sports, if you're a regular guy or a regular gal that enjoys that kind of stuff, subscribe. I just do these things off top of my head. I try to give you some decent content, some context. And so for now, cheerio. I will be back again within a week. Cheers.